Right now, all right, we're online, everybody. Don't worry. Don't worry. I clicked the button. It's recording. Everything's great. Everything's good. All right. Okay. I'm actually going to talk about SimNet at the end of today's lecture, not at the beginning. So I'm just going to get right into the content today. So in chapter one, I talked about two different types of software. I talked about software that you and I use, which is application software, and I talked about software the computer uses, which is called system software. So the next two chapters, today and next Tuesday, I'm going to go over both of those different types of software. All right, so it wasn't too long ago where we actually needed training on how to use all kinds of different applications. Nowadays, you have phones, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And so it's really not that hard to install an application and start using it without any training whatsoever. So in this chapter, I'm going to talk again about word processors, spreadsheets, presentation programs, and database management systems. And I'm going to talk about some specialized applications. And for the extra credit for this chapter, it's not a quiz, so I know you can get the points. I think I put 25 categories on a Word document. And I want you to find one application for each of the 25 categories that are on there. I threw you some curveballs as far as the categories of applications. You're going to go, he really wants us to look for that? Yes. Yes, I do. And if you get all 25, you get your 5 points for the chapter. Again, I do not want to see, just like with the previous one, I don't want to see the word Microsoft anywhere, unless it's Microsoft Word for a word processor, for example. I just gave you that one. Then you're allowed to do that. You can't just like slap the word Adobe on something either, because Adobe makes a billion different applications. So you can't put like I don't want you to put the manufacturer's name on there unless you actually have the full name of the application. So for people watching, you too, keep that in mind if you're going to turn in the extra credit. And if you totally mess up the extra credit, I will give you another chance to do it again for this chapter. Just like the last chapter. All right. So again, talked about this in chapter 1. Application software is what we call end user software. We are the end users. And as people have jokingly said over the years, there's an app for that. Yes, there's always applications that we can download and use as end users. So keep in mind that system software, I'm going to talk about system software next week. And that's going to be in chapter 4. So that handles the technical details and works along with the hardware. And we're going to have a whole long lecture on that next Tuesday. The 3 categories of applications for review. General purpose, specialized. I hope you know what mobile ones are, even though I'm going to talk about it anyway. All right, so applications have a lot of things in common. One of those things is a graphical user interface. Yes, it's made up of graphics. That's why it's called graphical user interface. You also see icons. You can click the icon and it does perform some command. Maybe you have to double click an icon, okay? And it performs some kind of command. I hope you know what a pointer is. On your phone, what's the pointer? This, right? Okay. So pointers, we have those. I hope you know what those are. I hope you know what a window is. Yes, even on your phones, when you have all the different applications open, those all open in Windows. So it is possible for you to have several applications open at one time. We also have menus. In the old version of Word, which is what you see up here, you notice that there are menus, file, edit, etc. There are many different applications that have menus. Now, when you're dealing with mobile applications, usually you don't see all the words for the menus. Usually you see a button that has 3 lines going across and you touch it and it brings up the menu. So you get a bunch of different options from those menus. Toolbars and buttons. I talked about the quick access toolbar in Word. It's at the top of the screen. You've all seen it. It has like the little disk for the save button. It has an undo button. You can literally put any command you want, literally any command you want in that quick access toolbar at the top of the screen. You can put anything you want in there. Now, the thing about the quick access toolbar at the top of the screen in Word is when you go to Excel, those buttons don't transfer, those commands don't transfer to Excel. You have to set up a whole new toolbar for Excel, whole new toolbar for PowerPoint, whole new toolbar for Access. And I hope you know what a button is. The one that we click the most in this class is OK. We click OK a lot. That's a button. Cancel's another button. You see the example here in the dialog box in the bottom right corner. You see the default button, OK, cancel. You use the tabs button. You used all kinds of buttons in this class so far for projects. And last but not least, a dialog box. You've worked with the launchers already in this class. The launcher brings up the dialog box. The font dialog box we used a lot so far in Word. That's the best example I'm going to give you. And you'll notice that there's a lot more options in those dialog boxes than there are if we don't see them at all, if we just see the commands. All right, but let's talk about what we're using now. We are using the Ribbon graphical user interface. I've talked about this before, multiple times. And again, keep in mind your toolbar, your quick access toolbar is above the tabs at the top of the application. Then you have your series of tabs. Then you have the ribbon below the tabs. It's that whole area that goes across that has the different groups of commands and the launchers, the dialog box launchers. We talked about those before. One thing we haven't worked too much with is contextual tabs. So you're going to be seeing this very soon, especially when we deal with SmartArt. We are going to be dealing with SmartArt soon in Word documents. We're also going to be dealing with inserting an image into a Word document. That's coming up in the 4th project. So when you're working with those things, you're going to see additional tabs that appear to the right of the tabs that are at the top of the screen in the application. So you're going to see that. So we call those contextual tabs. And then when you click out of the object, the tabs go away, and you just see the regular tabs that we've been dealing with since the first project in this class. Galleries, we have worked with style galleries already. That's that gallery to the right that you see. We worked with all kinds of different styles in the last project. I hope you know what a spell checker does. I really don't think I need to explain that. And grammar checker as well. I hope I don't have to explain that as well. Alignment. So keep in mind, there's actually 4 different types of alignment. There's left, center, right, and there's also justify, which stretches the words across the page. Like if you have a paragraph, instead of it all being aligned on the left, it's going to be stretched out to align to both margins of the document. It makes the text look really weird. So if you've ever seen a document where that happens, that's what they did. They used justify instead of left alignment. Fonts and font sizes. You know I want to open up Word for this, right? You know I don't just like talking about this stuff. I got to do it. See, and I cheat. I just come down here and type O-R-D. There, it came up. All right, great. I didn't even have to spell it right. All right, so here we go. So again, quick access toolbar is here at the top of the screen. You can literally add any button you want. I'm just showing this to you. Okay. So I'm going to change popular commands to all commands. You're going to see how many commands you can add. It's an insane amount of commands. Look at this. You can add any of this to the toolbar. Jeez. Anything you want, okay? So I added print, preview, and print and open just for examples, and I added a new file over here too from this side of the screen. So you can literally add any command you want, okay? You can also create your own tabs. I know I haven't talked about that yet, but yes, you have the ability. See how I click Customize Ribbon? You have the ability to create your own tabs with your own commands, like with commands that you regularly use. So if you don't feel like going back and forth between all the tabs, you can make up your own tab, put all the commands you want in it. I actually tried that, and it worked. It took a long time for me to set up because I use a lot of different commands. But I only had one tab. I called it Nick's tab, and it had everything in there. I had all the groups set up. I had all that set up, and I'm like, oh, that's okay. You can do it all from this screen. You can add and you can delete. Oh, that's the other sad thing. You can delete stuff too. So please do not delete things. That's bad. Do not do that. But you can mess up some stuff pretty good in this screen as well. But anyway, I just use it to usually use it to add tabs if you want to add tabs. Anyway, I just wanted to show you that. Back to fonts and font sizes. So by default, Word always gives you Calibri and 11. Now keep in mind, there are literally thousands and thousands of fonts. Like, there's even way more than this, right? Can I download fonts?
Yeah.
But what's the problem if you downloaded the font and I don't have it? I don't have it on my computer. Am I going to see your font? No. It's going to default to either a serif font, a sans serif font. Oh, if you don't know what a serif font is, a serif font, little tiny like serifs stick out of every letter. Times New Roman, that is if I can find Times New Roman. I'm going to scroll all the way down for this, aren't I? So Times New Roman, I'm going to jack this up so everybody can see it. Okay, there are little tiny serifs that stick out of each of these letters. Like the letter F has these little tiny serifs that stick out of the letter. The T, see how the little things stick out of the letter? Even when you type an L, little serifs stick out of the letter. Now, that's called a serif font. A sans serif font, that means without serifs. I'm going to go back to Calibri. You notice all the serifs go away. So we call this a sans serif or without serif font. So keep in mind, those are the two main ones. Granted, there's cursive, there's script, there's calligraphy, there's a bunch of different like fantasy type fonts. Those are all out there too. Anyway, am I restricted to just 72 points? This thing only lets me go to 72. Here, let me do this. This thing only lets me go to 72. Can I make it bigger? What do you say? Can I make it bigger than 72? Oh, I'm seeing some nodding for yes. So I can do like 128. You're like, Nick, you just typed it in there. Yes, I just typed it in there. Yep, I can do 128. Do I hear 500? Yeah, I don't know why you would want to go to 500. Do I hear 1,000? Yes, I hear 1,000. Do I hear any higher? Anybody want me to go any higher?
2,000?
2,000? Nope, it set me back to 1,000. Well, let me try 1,500. Oh, I got 1,500. You're all like, oh, there it is. 1,638 points is as high as you can go. That's why I like showing this one. Okay. So anyhow, you can make text really, 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 really big. You don't have to stick with. You're not just confined to these numbers here. That's all I'm telling you. You're like, okay, back to 12. That's 12 point. That looks small. That looks small. That's why I have to do this. That's why I have to zoom in so I can see it. All right. Okay. I think I've beaten that to death enough. Let's get back to it. So, tables. So with tables, you're actually going to work with a table in Word. You're going to work with a table in Excel. You're going to work with a table in PowerPoint. And you're going to work with tables in Microsoft Access. You're going to deal with tables in all four. Normally tables are for data. So we will be presenting data or analyzing data using all four of the main programs. And reports. So you can write a report in Word. You can actually create a report in Excel if you want. I don't know why you would. You can deliver a report using presentation software. And you can do a report in Access. And yes, one of our projects, we actually have to physically, you are not going to like me for that project, we have to physically adjust every single column of this one report in Access. It's going to take us like half the class to do it, if not more. And you're all going to go, and I'm just going to tell you up front, in real life, I would definitely not do it the way they're going to have us do it. Like, never. I would never do that in real life. There's faster ways to do it. Okay, moving on. All right, I know this sounds like we've done this before. I've already asked questions like this before about general purpose. I believe what I heard from chapter 1 was what? The phone app. What else do we do on a daily basis? We text people, messaging applications. We also check our grades. What was that?
Social media.
Okay, social media could be a general purpose application because a lot of people use it. Email. Email could be another one. Wait, what did you mention? Eddie, what did you mention? You say check grades? Well, the Canvas app, yes, but who are the only people that have access to the Canvas app?
Group of us.
Us, right? Like, people in my family that don't go to school, they don't have access to all that. So I mean, like, yeah. So then there's these four. So I just want you to think about when we talk about general purpose, it's something that like a lot of like people and businesses use, like a lot, like the majority. Okay, I know I'm getting fancy today. So anyway, with word processors, this is review. We can create letters, memos. Oh God, am I really gonna say that word in class? What is a fax? Faxes, newsletters, brochures. There's a bunch of different word processing applications out there. For my Mac people, for your individual research project, please don't send me a Pages file. I can't open Pages files. Just please send me just a doc, just send me a document. I don't care if you send me a PDF, just send me something I can open. I don't have a Mac. So Apple Pages is the Mac one. You'll see OpenOffice on here. So for our Linux systems, especially for our Linux systems, OpenOffice is great. You can save files as a Microsoft Word document, as a PowerPoint presentation. Yes, you can save the files just like you would in Word. But OpenOffice is usually free of charge. It should better be free of charge. All right. So your book talks about creating a flyer. I've mentioned a few of these things before. We've actually worked with every single thing that's on this slide. We've worked with the spell checker. We've worked with character effects. We've worked with word wrap. It automatically word wraps. Fonts and font sizes. We've dealt with all this. Now, pretty soon, we're going to be dealing with a document that's longer, yes, than we've dealt with before in the first two projects. We are going to be working with something called footnotes, which you see at the bottom of this page. Now keep in mind, the footnote has to do with something on that page. So if we have a 6-page document, and I'm on page 3, and I want to put a footnote in somewhere, I can do that. It allows me to put the note on the bottom of that page. Now there's also something called an endnote. Problem with the endnote is, it's end for a reason. Somebody accidentally clicks endnote instead of footnote, it's going to send that note all the way to the end of the document. Instead of on page 3, it's going to be on page 6. So so if anybody ever does that in this class, the good news is Word has set it up now to where you can just right-click that note and you can like convert it back to a footnote, convert it to an endnote, back and forth, which I love that feature. We're also going to deal with headers and footers. You've already dealt with footers, believe it or not. That's already occurred. We're going to be doing that again real soon. Autocorrect, I have it turned off on all of my devices. Why? Why did I turn it off on all my devices? All my devices. No autocorrect. Why? Look, when I want to misspell something on purpose, I want to misspell something on purpose. I don't need it to try and give me something else. That's for me to correct. It's not for the computer. And sometimes the computer totally doesn't correct it right. It gives you some other word. And I'm like, that is so weird. So, yes. So, yeah, I used to tell the story about my wife and her phone, how whenever she would type something, like start autocorrecting to bad words, because she would use them all the time. So, yes, her phone did that and still does that. And I'm like, would you stop cussing in front of your phone? I'm like, you don't hear me doing that stuff. See, I could have used the bad word right there, but I used stuff instead. See, I'm getting better than her. All right. Anyhow, let's move on. Okay. Pretty soon, believe it or not, it's 2 weeks from Thursday. Yes, that is 16 days. We're going to be starting to work with Excel. So Excel, I call it the most powerful calculator on the planet. Yes, when I started mastering Excel, I threw the adding machine that was in my office, I threw it down the hall where my office was. Not here, but I mean like when I was working in an office. I actually unplugged it and I threw it as hard as I could down the hallway because I got tired of it. So I wanted to start using Excel instead because it had way more powerful calculating features. And it was easier for me to open. And when I printed stuff, it didn't fade like the adding machine tape. If the adding machine tape got too hot, it would go totally black. You couldn't see any of the numbers. So yeah, so I used Excel. I love Excel. So when we want to analyze data, calculate data, Excel is awesome. There's also Apple Numbers, OpenOffice Calc, and Google Sheets also. I use Google Sheets quite a bit also. All right, so here's what the sheet looks like. Yeah, I'm gonna go over here for a minute. Sorry, everybody over there. They all decided to sit on this side today. All right, I'm gonna write this as dark as I can at the top of this. So here we go. So there are two different ways you can perform calculations in Excel. You can create a formula. You can create a formula. So with a formula, you'll see that the columns have letters and the rows have numbers. So when we talk about a cell reference, we talk about the letter first, the number second. So when I say A1, that's the very first cell that you see in the upper left corner of that sheet. That's A1. But if I want to add some cells together, I have two different ways I can do this. Let's say I want to add, what was that, B7 plus C7 plus D7? That's January, February, and March for espresso, right, on row 7? So when we make calculations, we always type an equal symbol first. That's we always, when we're in spreadsheets, equal symbol is first. Now, if I want to add those three cells together, I'm going to click on B7 plus, then I have to type a plus. Then I'm going to click on the one next to it, which is C7. Then I'm going to type a plus, and then I'm going to click the next one, which is D7, okay? So I can add those three cells together by typing equals, click, plus, click, and I get that. That's a formula. Excel has something very powerful called functions, which is way better than typing formulas. You'll see that it's shorter too. So a function is built into Excel. You're going to see functions in Excel. So with this one, I just type the word sum, I type a parenthesis, I take my mouse and drag it across B7 to D7. The colon means it's a range. And that's the difference between a function and a formula. Formulas are manually built. Functions are built into the program or the application. And yes, I have not used all of the functions. I haven't even come close. 30 years using this program now. 30 years. Isn't that sick? That was 30 years ago. That would have been like 95. Yeah, been using this since 94. So that's what, almost 32 years? Yeah. So, actually, I think I used it before 94. Anyway, there are so many functions in Excel, you can use it every day for your whole life. You're not going to use them all. You can try, because you have to have a reason to use them, right? Like you have to have like something to calculate. But we're going to be using those a lot over the next several weeks. We'll be using various different functions. Oh, and there's one project you're going to do where you got to put a function inside of a function. You're like, oh no, yeah. We'll go real slow through that part, don't you worry. All right. And then, of course, we're going to be creating charts. We're going to be creating a bunch of charts in Excel as well. So spreadsheet software, we can do that as well. We're also going to be going over macros, which, yes, are keyboard shortcuts that we create, that you and I create. It's not the keyboard shortcuts that are already programmed. So yes, we'll be using the Shift and the Control keys at the same time to create those. The book doesn't want you to actually do that in the project, but guess who's going to make you do it? So that we can just like do the Control Shift and the thing and it just does it to test it. And I'm like, that's way easier than what they want you to do. So yeah, we'll set those up so that you can actually see how it works in like real life. All right, anyway. Workbook files have several worksheets. You'll see that in the upper corner there, where it's pointing to the bottom of the file, where there's like what, 5 different tabs down there, or sheet tabs. So we're going to be also working with renaming sheet tabs. We're going to be working with copying a sheet, basically duplicating it. We're going to be doing that as well. You're going to learn how to move the sheets around down there at the bottom of the file. So we're going to be going through all that in our 5 weeks. 5 weeks of Excel. We got 5 weeks of Excel. And then by the time you're done, you're going to be like, because the macros chapter is the last one, you go, I don't like you. And then the next week, when we do the first access project, it takes like 15 minutes, then you'll like me again. All right, you better know what presentation graphics software is. 'Cause I mean, like, this is like the third time you've seen it, or fourth time you've seen it, or fifth, maybe, in this class. So, keep in mind, we've got PowerPoint, we've got Google Slides, OpenOffice, Impress, and Apple Keynote. You notice I like to use a lot of fun transitions. Those are called transitions. That's what they are, from slide to slide. So I like to use a lot of fun, different transitions. I don't like to use animations. I've seen a lot of people give presentations with animations. And where's my face gonna be looking if you have a whole bunch of stuff flying behind me? I'm gonna be looking at that. Forget the speaker. Forget the speaker. I'm gonna be like, what's that dog gonna do? Seriously, I'm still like that. I'm like, what did you say? No. Usually I have a button to turn this off, but I think I broke that button on this, so that's okay. All right, I click it too many times and starts back. But anyway, with presentations, you'll notice that I give a different theme, different style every single time I give a presentation. It's different, as it should be. It should be. I've seen people teach this class, and I'm calling all of you out there because I know other classes are watching this, where the instructor has the McGraw-Hill slides. I say McGraw-Hill on every one. That's boring. Do something with it, please. Okay, so you can even download templates for these. You can download them. You type a word in, something that you want, like technology, for example, and you can download a technology one. Space, you can download a space one. Like, you're not confined to what PowerPoint gives you. All right, moving on. The last one I'm going to talk about here for general purpose is database management systems. So you'll notice that there's no Apple option here. It's Microsoft Access and OpenOffice Base, and that's it. So yes, my Mac users, you're going to have to do your Access stuff on a PC, or you can do the remote. You should be able to do the remote login to a Windows machine from your Mac. You should be able to do that too. Anyway, why a database and not a spreadsheet? Well, there are many, many, many reasons. We have a whole chapter on databases. That's chapter 11. That's 8 weeks from now. Or 9, that's right, we got spring break in there too, don't we? So we got 9 weeks from now, we'll be covering that. So I don't want to bore you to tears with that, but let me just say that with databases, it allows us to have people with various logins, with various access to different parts of the database. And the great thing about a database is, once somebody updates it in real time, then I can go see the change in real time. Whereas the spreadsheets, it's possible for 14 different departments to have the same spreadsheet and they all make different changes, but they're not sharing it. It's their own spreadsheet. So I can't see the other 13 sheets if they don't share it. That is, if they don't share the file. So databases are better because it centralizes that data. Again, I've got a lot of stuff to talk about with databases in this class, so I don't want to do too much today. All right, a few different parts of a database. Everything, all that data is inside of fields, what we call fields, like last name, first name, address, city, state, zip. Those are all fields. All of the fields together comprise a record. So that would be your record, your first name, your last name, your address, your student ID number. Speaking of student ID numbers, you'll notice on the left-hand side of this example, there's something called a primary key. So with the primary key field, every value in that field must be unique. So that means that we all have different student numbers. I think, I'm a student too, so I have a student number. Mine's likely more lower than a lot of yours, but as far as the number is, but I still have one. So we all have different ID numbers. That would be our primary key field for a table. So all these different fields are stored inside of tables. Now keep in mind that I might get a few of these fields from one table. I might get a few of these fields from another table. I might get a few of these fields from another table. But all the tables are linked together so that I can put them all into a nice record, like the records that you see here. So just keep that in mind when we get to that point. I'm going to talk about it again when we get to that point. It's possible for records to be comprised of data from various tables. We're actually going to do that in this class. We're actually going to do that in Microsoft Access. And we can also create forms. And yes, you will be creating a form in one of your projects. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. The data is already going to exist. All we're going to do is click a couple buttons and it will generate a form for us. Sort of like what you see here, but without the picture. We won't have the picture feature. And yes, it is possible for pictures to be put into the database as well. All right. Now for general purpose, let's move on to, I did say this was, yeah, it took me a half hour to do, okay. Now we're finally on to specialized. So what I want you to think about as far as specialized applications, these are applications that are specific to certain disciplines and certain occupations. So for example, well, Nick, I take pictures every day. Yeah, but how often do you edit those pictures? Some of you are like, never, I just take them and I just share them with my friends and I don't do anything to them. But then you might have somebody that does that all the time. So they need some kind of specialized application to do that. Now, of course, a lot of us can edit pictures on our phones now. Yes. But I'm talking about like for an industry, like for a professional photographer, they're gonna probably need some kind of software to touch up pictures or manipulate pictures somehow. So I want you to just kind of think about that. Think about the health field. How many specialized applications are in the health field? Like healthcare field, like a ton, right? So like stuff we wouldn't be downloading at home. Think about computer-aided drafting and computer-aided manufacturing programs or applications. A lot of us don't use that. So that's a specialized application too. Okay? So that's what I kind of want you just to think about when we're going through these. Oh yeah, some web development too. There's software out there for that, and not everybody does that all the time. So those are specialized as well. So today I'm going to talk about 3 different types of applications or programs for graphics, and those are desktop publishing, which that's one of the answers to your quiz question today. It's coming up. Image editing programs and illustration programs. I'll talk about the difference between the 3. All right, so I want you to think about Microsoft Publisher. That's the one that gets used a lot as far as desktop publishing programs are concerned. These are called page layout programs. And the reason they call these page layout programs is because I want you to think about like, all right, I don't know if you know what a magazine is. It's one of those things that like fold open and you like read articles and stuff. Sorry, I have to say that because there might be one person in here that doesn't know what that is. So anyhow, think about that electronically. It's gonna be laid out like this, right? And it's gonna be 2 pages. So the great part about page layout programs are you can drag objects. Like if you put an image in there, you can drag it anywhere you want, freely, anywhere you want. Block of text, you can drag that anywhere you want. And you can manipulate the text, and you can manipulate you can change the size of the image, and you can drag it around. That's the best part of page layout programs, is that you can mix all these different types of objects and drag them anywhere you want to make it into a nice layout. So I've had students in my web design classes try to create, and if you're one of them right now, you better be listening to me. Do not use Microsoft Publisher for web development. That is a no-no, because it generates so much extraneous code, like a massive amount of code that doesn't need to be there. And I know when I see it. So I'll be like, I know what you used for that. I'm like, can you please redo the assignment? Anyway, moving on. Image editing. So we have a lot of different image editors out there. There are a lot of them out there. Of course, you can download image editors on your phone now too, right? Like there's just a lot of them. So what do you think about this? This is another quiz question today, I believe. So photographs that we take, like pictures that we take, consists of thousands and millions of pixels that form things that are called raster images or bitmaps. You notice that the letter A on the right side, when it's zoomed out, it looks really nice. The A looks really nice. But when you zoom in, it starts becoming pixelated. It becomes pixelated and pixelated and pixelated. So image editors, like Photoshop, for example, you can actually zoom way in and actually manipulate pixel by pixel, which I've actually personally had to do in my job a few times. Nick, can you edit this picture to make it look like, can you give the person like darker hair? I'm like, how am I gonna do that? So I had to zoom in on every pixel and just go, we're gonna blend it in with that, we're gonna do that, and that would take forever with Photoshop, but I was able to pull that off. The people that always would do that for would go, you really make me look good on there. I'm like, thank you. They're like, where'd you learn how to do that? I'm like, I didn't. I just zoomed in and started clicking. Anyway, we have all kinds of other applications that are out there. I'm gonna move on. Illustration programs are the third type. Illustration programs create what are called vector images. So these use geometric shapes and objects. So keep that in mind. Lines and curves, mathematical equations. One pet peeve that I have is when people design logos in Illustrator and they want me to open it up in Photoshop, and I can't open it up in Photoshop because they used an illustration program. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. I'm like, do the logo in Photoshop so I can at least like do something with it. So illustration programs, again, keep that in mind. It's for vector images. Adobe Illustrator, Corel Draw, Inkscape, those are all out there. But keep in mind, these are more drawing programs. They're not like for photographs. Now you notice that you can put a photograph in it, you can put an image in it. But as you notice on the left side of the object on the right on this slide, the program itself, that's Illustrator, you'll notice the different slides. You'll notice the different shapes that are used. So we use illustration programs for those types of images. Video editors, there's a lot of video editors out there. Some are free. Keep that in mind that, yes, not all of us edit videos all of the time. Some of us might, some of us might not. I do not edit videos like ever. So this is definitely these are definitely specialized applications. Same thing goes with creating video games, which, yes, you can try to create a video game in one day. I don't know where you're gonna get, but I mean, I've seen teams do it in hackathon events. I've seen teams develop like very rudimentary video games. But yes, usually you need a lot of thought into the characters. You gotta be able to build them. You gotta be able to build all their moves. And it does take some time to do. However, these are definitely specialized software as well. Ah, yes, that's what I needed to fix was this slide. Don't worry, I got it, everybody. Okay, so in web development or web authoring, we create a website. Some people create blogs, which I think I've talked about blogs before, which are online diaries. Some people like to create a full site with all kinds of pages in it. So in that case, you would see something like what you see on the right here, which is a graphical sitemap, which shows the home page and all the associated pages within the website. Yes, in that graphical sitemap. Programs like Adobe Weaver, or Dreamweaver, excuse me, actually have features where you can see the whole sitemap, the actual physical sitemap. And within, and I've talked about HTML before and all this, we now animate using HTML5 and CSS. So we don't use Adobe Flash anymore. We use Adobe Animate, or we use, yes, you can actually do this in HTML5 and CSS. You can add cascading style sheets. You can actually animate objects using code. Yeah, that's interesting, right? And then, of course, like Adobe Dreamweaver itself, there are what you see is what you get editors that are out there as well. So if you don't want to see the code and you just want to put the objects on the page that generates the code, you can do that as well. All right. I hope you know what mobile applications are. There's only basically two places we can download those. Well, there's a few different places. We can download them to our wearable devices now too, right? We can install apps on our wearable devices, yes. So wearable devices, smartphones, tablets, that's where we find our mobile applications. So there are more applications, and this has been over the course of time, course of history. There are more applications for not Google devices, Android devices, than there are for Apple. This goes back to the whole history thing that I did for you all last week. So how many manufacturers make Apple devices? One, yes, that is not a trick question. One. And many make Android devices, right? So that's the main reason why you see more apps for Android devices than you do Apple. I've had students say, well, Mr. Rouse, isn't Apple more stringent on what they accept for applications than Android? That's another reason. Apple has restrictions, whereas Android, not as much. So that's another reason. So just keep those two main reasons in mind. You're not going to be quizzed or tested on that. There's nothing on here that you're going to get tested on, so you're fine. Anyway, There are several different app stores that are out there. The main ones are Apple's App Store, Google Play, and Samsung Galaxy Store. For some reason, the Samsung Galaxy Store keeps wanting me to install applications, and I'm like, no, no, don't close it. Close it, it keeps popping up, and I'm like, no, I don't want that. So anyhow, there they are. And yes, for your extra credit, let me go back to this for a second. For your extra credit, you are allowed to search your app stores for the various categories that I'm going to give you that are on your extra credit. Yes, you can use your app stores and just search for them and go, okay, there it is. I'm just going to put that as one of them. Okay, I'm going to put that as one of them. Okay. People used to actually do this in class. So yes, there's 25 categories. You're going to have to go search for them. But you can use app stores for that if you want. All right, moving on. So believe it or not, at one point, Microsoft Office wasn't sold in a suite. You had to buy Word separate from Excel and Access and PowerPoint, and it was a pain. I mean, it was nice because as a student when I was younger, if I needed one of these programs, I would just buy it. It'd be way cheaper than buying all of them. But then over time, Microsoft decided to put them all into a suite. So now, as students, we get all of those different applications free of charge, all in a suite. Of course, I've got my ways to buy Office for $20 or $15. Yes, the Groupon thing actually does work. I've made it work twice from 2 different companies. So yes, it's legit. So there you go. So after this class, like after you're out of school and you don't get it for free anymore, Groupon will be around in 10 years, I'm sure. Don't forget, you can go buy them. They give you the code and everything. It's legit. It is. All right. Anyway, moving on. Google Drive is another suite that we use. Yes, sort of like Office, right? You've got Google Docs, you've got Google Sheets, you've got Google Slides, you've got all that. Notice I don't ever make you use those applications. I'm telling you to use Microsoft. Okay, but yes, like for your research project you have to do, yes, you can use a Google Doc, save it as a Word doc and upload it and yes, submit that. I'm okay with that if you do that. All right, anyway, there's all kinds of other suites up here, specialized suites. Adobe, the Adobe suite is very expensive. Yes, very expensive. No, I do not get discounts on that. So it's awesome. I talked about Photoshop, talked about Illustrator, talked about all the different Adobe programs. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them out there. But that's all inside that suite. And of course, there's utility suites, which I will talk about utilities in our next class. I mean, next Tuesday's class. So for Google, as far as I know, they have not taken away the unlimited space for Phoenix College student accounts. I'm at 1 terabyte on mine. Yes, I'm at 1 terabyte of storage on my work Google account, my Google Drive account. So I'm also a student, but you're supposed to have unlimited space on there. So last week, I thought I talked about web file transfer utilities and how Google Drive could technically be a file transfer utility because we're taking files and we're putting them up to Google, and then we're taking them from Google and downloading them. So keep in mind that for personal Gmail accounts, it's 15 gigabytes. It's unlimited for your student accounts. No, that does not mean take everything, all your personal stuff, and throw it onto your Phoenix College account. I am not telling you to do that. Of course, if you do it temporarily, that's okay, but just don't keep it on there because there are actually people that track. Yes, IT said, Mr. Rouse, you have a really sensitive document. And I'm like, well, what's the document? It was some text page out of a textbook. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, that's a page out of a textbook. That's not sensitive information. Because I had to take a picture of a page out of a textbook and upload it, right? So, whatever. Anyway, it's there for you. And our career in IT for this week is the software engineer. Chapter 13 is where we really talk about programming. That's the last chapter in the class. And that's not for another, 13 more, or wait, no, 11 more weeks, I think. So yes, in a few months we'll talk about that. But keep in mind that the different attributes that you need to be a software engineer, good communication skills, that's every job. some programming experience. Some of you are like, where am I gonna get programming experience? Where do you think you're gonna get programming experience? Take the classes, right? Start building stuff. Make a portfolio of stuff, right? You start getting the experience. You gotta be detail oriented because you're gonna find out in chapter 13, I'm gonna talk about things like syntax errors and stuff like that. So you've gotta be detail oriented. Some kind of web application experience is needed. And last but not least, analytical skills. You gotta be very analytical because yes, staring at lines and lines and lines of code is not like the most glamorous thing in the world, but you do have to be detail-oriented and be very analytical. And they make a lot of money. That's the median salary, $130,000. It means half the jobs pay more than that. So, yeah, stuff to think about, right? And our look to the future for this chapter. I know that on my phone, all my icons are not set up the same way as yours. I promise you that. So there's not going to be a single interface. I don't think that's going to be able to serve each and every one of us. It's just not going to happen. We're going to see more touch screens. We're going to see more interactive screens as time goes on, voice recognition, gesture controls, augmented reality. I'm actually going to talk about all this stuff throughout the rest of this course. So just keep that in mind that, yes, I'll be talking about these things, especially in Chapter 6. When we go over input and output devices, I will be talking about that quite a bit. Here is your reminder. This is to all of you that are watching as well. Even if you're in other CIS105 classes, this should be happening to you too. So your SimNet courtesy license will expire, if you're still on the courtesy license, before Thursday's class. So please go into SimNet. You're going to click on your name in gold in the upper right corner. Don't worry, Marshall, I'll talk about what you went through. I'm not going to mention that you went through it, but wait, I just did. But anyway, you're going to go into SimNet. Yes, I'm going to go in there right now just to show you. You're like, don't save. So your name is going to be in the upper right corner up here. Now, mine's going to look a lot different. So for those that are on the courtesy access, please click this. Then you'll see a button that says Buy Online. Then you'll be prompted for a password. So if you have not set up a password, which you haven't in SimNet yet, if you try to put in your MEID password, it's likely not going to work. So you will click Forgot Password. There's a link called Forgot Password. Click that. Then just put in your MEID password to set it up. Don't make it any different. Don't make a different password. Don't worry, I didn't need that screen anyway. But anyhow, I showed you where it was at before it timed out. All right. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm not finished yet. So we'll be working on the third chapter for Word on Thursday for the project. So please, 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 for those that have not caught up, please get caught up by that time. Even if you just have to do the third chapter only this week, and then you can go back and finish the ones that you haven't finished for SimBooks, because I announced it last week, there were only 6 out of 20 that had finished the Chapter 2 SimBook. So please keep in mind, those are worth points, very valuable points. Please go get them. And if you have questions on the SimBooks, by the way, if you're having a hard time with one, just skip it and ask me in class, and I'll show you what to do. All right. Well, everybody online, here's to you. We'll see you for Chapter 3, Word, on Thursday.